Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. And boy, am I glad that you've joined us this morning. We have a lot of updates from throughout the week and even some from last week's broadcast. Yes, a couple things still percolating from AOC's visit to Munich. We will not talk as much about that, but still some noteworthy updates, some New York State issues, and much more. First, and there are some breaking stories, but first I want to get, as always, to viewer comments. Comment coming in early this morning. Hochul is advertising, Governor Hochul, is advertising that she had cut taxes for the middle class and now is going to cut the cost of car insurance. What a joke. Yes, we're going to see a lot of bluster from Governor Hochul this year being an election year, though I don't think she's quite as nervous as she once was. Though Bruce Blakeman is doing his best to get some attention, but we're not seeing a lot from Mr. Blakeman, but it is, well, somewhat early. Comment from Mark coming in yesterday saying, I hope this helps some people. When NYSEG installed these smart meters, they set your rate to day-night, which is much more expensive. Check page 3 of your bill to find out what rate your service is at. If it's day-night, call them to switch it to straight rate. You could save some money on your bill. Thank you very much, Mark. We appreciate that. All right. Breaking early this morning, within actually moments ago, ex-Prince Andrew has been arrested in the United Kingdom over his Epstein-linked allegations. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, I don't know how you say that, Mountbatten, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office after he allegedly forwarded trade documents to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. If convicted on the misconduct charge, Andrew faces a maximum sentence of life in prison. Now, that is a maximum sentence of life in prison. We know he is no longer a prince. That has already been taken from him, that title, and what comes with it. The British police were seen at his estate Thursday morning, which, I don't know if you'd say ironically, just happened to be Andrew's 66th birthday. 6 unmarked police cars and around 8 plainclothed officers had arrived at Wood Farm in eastern England earlier on Thursday. This breaking just moments ago. One officer was seen carrying a police-issued laptop after arriving around 8 a.m. local time, 3 a.m. our time. We don't have to go through each step because right now it is obviously a breaking story and not a lot of information. An anti-monarchy campaigner reported Andrew after it emerged the ex-royal had allegedly shared trade documents with Epstein. Trade envoys must keep details about their trips confidential even when they are no longer in post under the Official Secrets Act. UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer said nobody is above the law when quizzed about Andrew. I think that's a matter for the police. So again, ex-Prince Andrew arrested by the United Kingdom police over Epstein-linked allegations. That's breaking this morning. Another breaking story that came out yesterday, and it's kind of an exclusive to Fox News, saying nearly 6,000 ISIS detainees, described by senior U.S. intelligence officials as, quote, the worst of the worst, were being held in northern Syria as clashes and instability threaten the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces. The guards responsible for keeping the militants locked away and preventing a feared ISIS resurgence. U.S. officials believe that if the prisons collapsed in the chaos, the consequences would be immediately. A senior intelligence official saying, quote, if these 6,000 or so got out and returned to the battlefield, that would basically be the instant reconstitution of ISIS. Wow. So the United States thwarting a near catastrophic prison break, which could have changed essentially world politics in the blink of an eye. The risk, the official explained, had been building for months. In late October, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard began to assess that Syrians' transition could tip into disorder and create the condition for a catastrophic jailbreak. The ODNI sent the official to Syria and Iraq at the time to begin early discussions with both sides of the SDF and the Iraq government about how to remove what the official repeatedly described as the most dangerous detainees before events overtook them. So pretty interesting. You can find this at Fox News, but the United States thwarting what could have been a prison break that would change world history as of this morning. So kudos again to the officials that stopped that prison break. Also on the international front, coming in yesterday, President Trump is sending the USS Gerald R. Ford, the world's largest warship, to the Middle East, along with a huge fleet of aerial refueling tankers and F-22 and F-35 strike fighters, according to reports. Now, this is interesting because it was quite a while back, and I wish I could remember who reported it, because it was, I'm not going to say intentionally false information, but we were told quite some time ago that the USS Gerald R. Ford was going to be on its way, and then it switched, after being reported, it switched to another warship. The massive buildup in military hardware is the biggest indication yet that Trump could be preparing for large-scale strikes against Iran if high-stakes negotiations over the nuclear program and the brutal crackdown on protesters, if those negotiations fail. The nuclear-powered aircraft carrier Ford and its carrier strike group set sail in the Atlantic yesterday, or actually on Tuesday, and is headed for the Strait of Gibraltar. Why am I struggling with that this morning? The entrance to the Mediterranean Sea. It would join the USS Abraham Lincoln carrier strike group in the Middle East. The Ford, America's most advanced aircraft carrier and the largest ever built, is designed to carry more than, get this, 75 aircraft. Wow. The strike group is accompanied by 3 destroyers, the USS Bainbridge, the USS Mahan, and the USS Winston Churchill. And then we learn from anonymous sources, so take it with a grain of salt, but there are a lot of outlets. I have the New York Post's version of it. Excuse me, frog in my throat this morning, dry. But it was reported at CNN and elsewhere. A massive U.S. military buildup in the Middle East suggests that U.S. could be ready to launch a sustained bombing campaign on Iraq in weeks or even days. CNN reported as early as this weekend. This is if Tehran continues to refuse President Trump's demands in the ongoing negotiations. With a second aircraft carrier en route to the region and a flood of hundreds of strike, support, and other aircraft already nearby, the sheer scale of forces now positioned in the region alone is highly unusual and unprecedented in recent decades, according to former Pentagon official Alex Plitzis. Plitzit saying, quote, "What we have amassed is an unprecedented size combination of land-based attack aircraft command and control and sea-based platforms. We haven't seen a buildup like this in this region in decades." And Iran, I'm not going to say in retaliation, but because of these negotiations, it's always weird with negotiations with Iran. That's when they seem to get or push the most kind of bluster. Iran has issued a formal notice to pilots warning of planned missile launches across broad areas of the country's south on Thursday, according to an official notification to air missions. So is this an exercise or an escalation, is the question that's being asked, with Iran closing their airspaces ahead of extensive missile launches. The notice is intended to ensure the safety of civilian aircraft passing through the Persian Gulf region and to compel international airlines to reroute flights during these scheduled activities. The report also being closely monitored in Israel, and that's our next piece. Yeah, we're moving fast on the international front. We have a lot to get to. Oh, yesterday we had let me continue with this. Israel is on high alert as they believe there's an imminent U.S. strike on Iran. The Security Cabinet was postponed till Sunday to avoid an Iranian miscalculation, as security and emergency services remain on highest alert amid assessments President Trump may soon approve a prolonged joint U.S.-Israel strike targeting ballistic missiles and potentially the regime, with the Houthis expected to join and possibly Hezbollah. According to a diplomatic source who was quoted by Al Jazeera, they said, quote, "American patience with Iranian delays may run out faster than Tehran thinks." And a lot of this not only is because of the negotiations going what you could maybe describe as poorly, you also have the crackdown on the Iranian protesters, which I do find it interesting. I know we've talked about this in the past. Where are the protesters in the streets when we saw so many here on Market Street? You've seen them in Elmira. That some, depending on what sign you see, it would be deemed anti-Semitic or anti-Israel. But we're not seeing the same protests in support of the brave protesters in Iran. Why is that? What is the deciding factor there? In recent limited consultations led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the working assumption was that Iran would fire missiles at Israel even if the IDF does not take part in potential U.S. airstrikes or U.S. strikes. As a result, emergency services and the Home Front Command, the military body responsible for civilian defense, were instructed to prepare for war. Various security agencies have declared the highest level of defensive alert, and the defense establishment is on edge. So there is your news this morning from the international front. This will be something we keep a close eye on, as again it's being reported an attack on Iran could happen within weeks, at the outside of the time frame, within days, and as soon as this weekend. 6 of one, half dozen another on those last two. But that ties in with a conversation we had yesterday with many of you getting involved, where the question was asked by Carol. Now, again, I keep saying question, but she just stated that she thinks Rubio would be better at the top of the ticket than J.D. Vance. Well, on the international front, I'm sorry, I'll take a sip of water when we go to break. There's two pieces, one on Rubio, one on J.D. Vance that we'll talk about when we return. But stay with us. A lot of waves, a lot of comments coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
With the games in full swing, stop in Hesselson's today and see why owning a sauna will bring calmness and stress relief naturally. Infrared, traditional rock saunas, and hybrid saunas. Hesselson's has them all on display in their expanded and remodeled showroom. Better circulation. Detox the skin through sweating. Feeling refreshed and rejuvenated. Now is the time to make every day better with your own sauna, starting at just $39.99. And remember, after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
From accept member service to easy, reliable, and secure digital banking and a deep commitment to the communities we call home, First Heritage is proud to be part of our members' everyday lives. That's why we're honored to be named Best Credit Union in the Twin Tiers 5 years in a row and Best Locally Owned Business in 2025. To our members, thank you for your trust, your loyalty, and your votes. And if you're not yet a member, visit fhfcu.org or stop by your local branch and see for yourself what makes First Heritage the best.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think about calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that can happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone.
Good morning, everyone. As we take a look at our forecasts ahead, we have a pretty quiet scene here, though clouds more often than not throughout the area. We do have our high temperatures nearing 50 degrees, so pretty mild. And look at our lows, well above the average, I should say. And mild weather still persisting tomorrow, but more moisture threats, more precipitation actually. And because it's so mild, it looks like rain for us. However, temperatures do drop later this.
As you can see, it's a little foggy out there this morning. Please be careful on your way into school or your way into work. Thank you to Ball Security and Horseheads for bringing you the view from the roof of historic Market Street in downtown Corning. All right, we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer: I looked at page 3 of my NYSEG bill, but saw nothing about day or night or straight rates. Could you ask the person who wrote in about saving money to clarify what I should be looking for? Yes, I just read Mark's comment. I was not familiar with it either. But if you could give us some more information, we'd appreciate it. Okay. Politico did quite a lengthy piece, and it just ties in with a couple of discussions we had yesterday. It's called The Enigma, Why J.D. Vance befuddles the world. The vice president's comments and actions have some diplomats questioning his ability to navigate global crises. Now, this is typical of Politico, and I'm not trying to dissuade how people weighed in yesterday about what the ticket should look like in 2028, if it should be Rubio Vance or Vance Rubio. Just showing you a little bit of the, as I said yesterday, it raises red flags or concerns when you see the mainstream media, who does not want to see Republicans win. You see the mainstream media promoting Marco Rubio. This is not in any way, shape, or form a dig on Marco Rubio. It's just something that we have to be mindful of. Then you see that same mainstream media saying, no, J.D. Vance is horrible. J.D. Vance is the worst. So that's two sorts of reporting that you have to take with a grain of salt and keep in mind and consider. So the kind of the crux of Politico's piece was that, and where was it? I had it marked here. If you want to make a foreign official roll their eyes in exasperation, ask them about President Donald Trump. If you want to make them freeze like a deer in headlights, ask them about J.D. Vance. Again, nice, fair, balanced reporting. The vice president, currently the strongest likely contender for 2028, is increasingly on the minds of global power players as they scan the U.S. political horizon. Foreign officials who have dealt with Vance tell me they found Vance and his allies to be influential on foreign affairs inside the Trump orbit. In this diplomatic crew, there's a hope that, should he reach the Oval Office, Vance will be a more predictable president than his current boss and run a more disciplined policy-making process. But Vance also is unnerving officials in many capitals. They worry he's too willing to put ideology above reality. They fret that he doesn't know enough about world history. In some cases, they're concerned that he doesn't have a clear stance on issues in many parts of the world. This coming from outlets in the mainstream media that still found a way to praise AOC on her speech in Munich. Quote, he's an intellectual, so he's got all the positives and negatives of intellectuals, a European diplomat said. He's very smart and has a great deal of sort of abstract theoretical depth, but he's probably not much of a pragmatist and doesn't really know a huge amount of the ins and outs of history and how the world works. Like, I don't want to sound naive, I guess. Do we want someone that makes diplomats feel at ease, in the sense that he doesn't have a clear stance on issues in many parts of the world? Wasn't that kind of the reaction that we heard over and over again about Trump in 2016? He doesn't know how Washington works. Okay, good. He doesn't know how the world works. Isn't it the same type of mindset? So, of course, all these people spoke on anonymity. Vance is only 41 and hasn't served long in public office. The diplomats and officials I spoke to know he must be careful right now not to stray far from the views of the looming emotional Trump. They also don't expect Vance to already have a fully formed agenda for the world to splash across the pages of foreign affairs. Anyway, why am I reading all this? But in a statement, a spokesperson for Vance said the vice president's role in this administration's foreign policy is very simple. He is there to ensure President Trump's America First foreign policy is being implemented at every step of the way. Should he run for president, one of Vance's biggest challenges will be explaining and perhaps in some cases distancing himself from Trump's foreign policy choices. Already in his first year as vice president, Vance has had to engage in some aerobatics to justify Trump's military operations against Iran and Venezuela. So do you see this erratic behavior from Trump in his foreign affairs? Do you see that yourself? Was capturing Maduro a bad foreign policy decision? Yet we hear the praises of Obama at the time. Joe Biden, they tried to completely, as best as they could, put a positive spin on the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. But Trump is the problem in this? Foreign officials take solace in the fact that Vance once opposed Trump before doing so made it impossible to succeed as a Republican. There's that, the lie that the media continues to push, that the people are scared. Then there's no way a Republican can agree with Trump, so it must mean that they're scared. That's how we talk about the media echo chamber and their bubble, because no one they know voted for Trump. Everybody they know hates Trump. So everybody in the Republican Party must as well, because again, it's the me idea of the media. That if anecdotally, if something happened to me, it's happening to everybody. So no one in the Republican Party can actually support the agenda of Trump. It just must be that they're scared, and Vance is included in that. A European official said life would be easier if we could choose our problems. Instead, we deal with the ones we get in reaction to potential Vance presidency. At Axios, they're saying Rubio, again, just keep in mind, the negative versus positive commentary, just something to weigh in the back of your thoughts. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been holding secret talks with the grandson and caretaker of Cuba's aging de facto dictator, Raul Castro, as the U.S. puts unprecedented pressure on Havana's regime. The talks between Rubio and Raul Guillermo Rodriguez Castro are bypassing official Cuban government channels. They show that the Trump administration sees the 94-year-old revolutionary as the communist island's true decision maker. Quote, I wouldn't call these negotiations as much as discussions about the future, a senior Trump administration official said. Now, that's interesting. I don't want to sound ignorant here. At the time, we talked a lot about Raul Castro. He went out of the spotlight for quite some time. So I guess we knew he was there, kind of like Fidel, who was there forever. And a lot of times there was questions about whether or not he was actually still alive when they said he was. But Raul Castro, 94 years old. Have not seen or heard from him in quite some time. But Rubio's secret squeeze on Raul Castro's Cuba. All right, there we go. We've got a couple other crazy stories. Before we get into it, I do want to talk a little bit about AOC. If you are just joining us, you're just waking up. Ex-Prince Andrew has been arrested by the United Kingdom police over his Epstein-linked allegations. That happened moments before we went on the air. I'm not going to keep reading that, but it may be something that interests you for those who have been following that closely. All right, a couple other political things, a few pop culture things as well that I think are worth mentioning. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
An albino baby buffalo was born.
Nearly 500 kilos of cocaine has been seized in a bus.
Day one of the National Glider Competition.
Allegiance from Elmira to Myrtle Beach starts May 22nd, 2026. Whether it's a weekend escape or a week in the sun, Myrtle Beach is closer than ever. Non-stop to sun, sand, and seaside days. From takeoff to toes in the sand, your coastal getaway starts right here at Elmira Corning Regional. Mornings on the boardwalk, afternoons on the golf course, and evenings with oceanfront dining or a flight away with Allegiant's new direct flight. Starts May 22nd, 2026. Book now at AllegiantAir.com.
At the Corning Painted Post High School Learning Center, we provide students with a variety of community-based and academic opportunities and a fresh start. Located on the Corning Community College campus, students earn high school credits and gain real-world experiences through community service, internships, art partnerships, and work opportunities, experiences they value for a lifetime. Our students find a place to reconnect and succeed. The Corning Painted Post High School Learning Center, turning fresh starts into future success.
United Way fights for the health, education, and financial stability of every person in every community. Will you?
Good morning, everyone. And as we take a look at our forecasts ahead, we have a pretty quiet scene here, though clouds more often than not throughout the area. We do have our high temperatures nearing 50 degrees, so pretty mild. And look at our lows, well above the average, I should say. And mild weather still persisting tomorrow, but more moisture threats, more precipitation actually. And because it's so mild, it looks like rain for us. However, temperatures do drop later.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Don't forget, tomorrow, former Congressman, current Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski will be joining us on the program, a fan favorite. So make sure you get your questions in. You can get them in ahead of time so we're prepared right out the gate, or you can just join us for a lively conversation as always with Joe Sempolinski. All right, comment from Jack. He writes, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Jack. The new aircraft carrier has 75 planes. My idea is, why not make an aircraft carrier that has 1,000 drones? Maybe some submersibles as well. Easy to imagine the long list of positives. A carrier costs between $13 and $14 billion. Just cut that into 7 drone carriers. Imagine the pilots sitting in the U.S. operating them on the other side of the earth. All nuclear powered. Just a thought. Thank you, Jack. Appreciate that. A new report is coming out, and it was released yesterday by Real Clear Investigations. Senior reporter Paul Sperry claimed that more than 1,000, quote, hours of new audio and video compiled by Columbia University in cooperation with the Obama Foundation has showed that Obama and Susan Rice were allegedly so distraught over Trump's win over Hillary Clinton that they cried. This is what the X post said. Breaking: President Obama and his national security advisor, Susan Rice, were so distraught after Trump won in 2016 that they literally broke down and cried in front of White House staff, according to 1,100 hours of new audio and video compiled by Columbia University in cooperation with the Obama Foundation. Sperry said after all they built, they feared their accomplishments, were at risk of being torn down by a con man and a clown. Ergo, Trump had to be stopped? ? Is that why we started to see the kind of deep state working behind the scenes? The Western Journal reported that Sperry did not indicate whether the audio would be released publicly or whether transcripts would be made available. A new interview archive also revealed that Obama and his administration were emotional over Trump's win and that they didn't view Trump as a serious candidate for president. Former Obama advisor David Axelrod spoke about how during the 2011 White House Correspondents' Dinner, he overheard Trump bragging to the other attendees about how he was in front of the polls. I kind of chuckled at it and went to my seat, Axelrod said. I don't think any of us really anticipated that Donald Trump would be a serious candidate for president, much less president. So that is, I know, dated in a way, but breaking news from that audio being released. And this may not ease their worried minds. Fox News host Laura Trump gave an interview to Miranda Devine at the New York Post. And she stated, Laura Trump, stating that many members of the Trump family could eventually run for office. Quote, I have looked at my father-in-law over the past 11, almost 12 years now, and I've watched the impact that he's been able to make in people's lives, and it's amazing. Look, he's dealt with heck, right? He has gone through so much. So it really inspired me, and I think it's inspired everyone in our family, so much so that I'd consider running for a possible Senate seat. So I would never say never to anything. What I do feel like, and whether it's for Donald Trump running, who thought about running for president for a long time before he actually did, or a Senate run, or whatever it may be for me, or I think anyone in our family, I think the timing has to be right, and it didn't work out for me in 2022. It didn't work out for me in 2025. Just the timing had to be right. Yes, even Trump joked about the fact that she had numerous chances, the easiest chances to be senator, and she never took them. But continuing, I would say that at this point, we're all kind of dipped our toe in the water of politics, enough to know that it's something that I think possibly interests many of us in our family. And I know the Democrats would love to hear that it may not end just with Donald Trump, but I think the timing has to be right for all of us. So Miranda Devine asking the question, what does Donald Trump say about that? You know, does he encourage you to run for office? Does he encourage Eric or Don? She said, I don't think I had a bigger champion in running for a Senate seat than my father-in-law. In fact, so much so that he would call me multiple times a week with multiple people from different backgrounds to say, this person thinks you'd be great. You got to do it. So it's absolutely a champion of mine. I'm sure of all the kids. He certainly would have their backs on it. But yeah, I think he's going to cheer for all of us or any of us if the time came for whatever that might be. Devine concluding, so we may see President Trump of the new generation. But which one is it still going to be? Maybe all three. So many Trumps may run for office. Interesting. Speaking of Donald Trump, before we get into some pop culture issues, did you see yesterday a grandma visiting the White House stole the show at the Black History Month celebration? A fierce Washington, D.C. grandmother stole the show at President Trump's Black History Month celebration, defending him against charges of racism. Forliza Cook, whose grandson was killed in a 2017 shooting, took to the stage to praise Trump's tough stance on crime and fired back at those who criticized his treatment of the black community. She said, quote, "I love him. I don't want to hear nothing you got to say about that racist stuff." Her voice got louder in her defense as her defense of Trump continued. Quote, "And don't be looking at me on the news hating me because I'm standing up for somebody that deserves to be standing for. Get off the man's back. Let him do his job. He's doing the right thing. Back off him." And Grandma said it, she concluded. The White House East Room went wild, applaud and cheering. Trump expressing his gratitude and encouraging Cook to run for office. Wow, that's pretty good. When is she running? When is she running for office? For Lisa, when are you running for office? Please, you have my endorsement. You have my endorsement. Thank you, darling. Cook also praised Trump for bringing National Guard troops to the nation's capital and for keeping it real. I like that about him. He keeps it real, just like Grandma. I appreciate that because I could trust him. It's a nice video if you haven't seen it. Not something that's going to be reported on much elsewhere. When we come back, I know yesterday, for whatever reason, we had Bruce Springsteen. We talked about Bruce Springsteen, the aging rocker, who got out. Well, we don't actually have to take a break quite yet, because I want to get your thoughts on this. So Bruce Springsteen said he was defending America, defending democracy by going on tour. Yes, delusions of grandeur, an ego that can't be measured. Well, now, adding to the list of aging rockers, kind of piggybacking off of Trump and trying to be famous from their hate, or get back in the limelight for their hate of Trump, just like we saw at the Grammys. U2, do you remember U2? They invoked Renee Nicole Good, the anti-ICE agitator who was gunned down by federal agents in Minnesota last month, and their new song entitled American Obituary. In the song, they call for a rise against the people of the lie. All right. It's the first track on their EP, Days of Ash. The EP honors the Minneapolis mother of three. I don't want to read the... Well, here's what the lyrics are. I don't know what the beat is, so I won't sing it for you this morning. Renee Good, born to die free, American mother of three, 7th day January, a bullet for each child you see, comma, you see. The song states the time, 9:30 a.m., is the approximate time Good was shot 3 times on a Minneapolis street. The quote, the color of her eye, 9:30 Minneapolis. To desecrate domestic bliss. 3 bullet blasts, 3 babies kissed. Renee, the domestic terrorist. I don't know. Reading the lyrics, I don't know. Trump administration officials, including Kristi Noem, described Good as a domestic terrorist. We know all that. But U2, I don't want to read anymore. It's making me uncomfortable reading the lyrics. But in the song, the band claims immigration operations allegedly targeted places of worship, schools, and streets where children were found. The release by the legendary group, consisting of Bono, The Edge, Adam Clayton, and Larry Mullen Jr., joined dozens of other musicians, surprise, surprise, in releasing songs protesting the Trump administration. So we mentioned Bruce Springsteen yesterday. You have Billie Eilish, of course, as we know, Bad Bunny, and the Dropkick Murphys have all been vocal against Trump and federal immigration officials. We don't need to talk anymore about Springsteen. There you go. A new trend. All right, we've got to take a break. A couple of things on the other side of that coin, just quickly in the pop culture world that I think are worth mentioning. Just a tiny bit about Stephen Colbert. I don't want to go into this with Stephen Colbert. The jokes, quote-unquote jokes, that he used about this interview is really confusing, but there's, I think, a fantastic opinion piece on this that we'll get to a little bit later on. Then AOC New York, Mamdani. We got a lot to cover. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Wheaton Fitzpatrick, located at 6 Gansevoort Street in Bath, is your experienced, highly qualified, and trusted certified public accounting firm. The dedicated and knowledgeable staff of Wheat Fitzpatrick can handle every type of accounting work, including personal and business income taxes. Stop into Wheaton Fitzpatrick at 6 Gansevoort Street or give them a call at 607-776-4308. The certified public accountants Charles Wheat and Kelly Fitzpatrick will work hard to make tax time easier for you. Call for an appointment at 607-776-4308.
An albino baby buffalo was born.
Nearly 500 kilos of cocaine has been seized and a bust.
Day one of the National Glider Competition.
Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
The red, white, and blue oval. The Ford President's Day sales event is bringing deals on all the stars of the lineup. And they've earned their stripes as J.D. Power's most awarded brand for new vehicle quality. Don't miss out, because now's the time to capitalize. Right now, returning lessees can lease a Ford Explorer for $319 a month for 36 months, only at your local Ford stores.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. An eerie view of historic Marcus Street. It is foggy out there, misty, so be careful on your way into school, your way into work. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on said Marcus Street in Corning. A couple comments from viewers. Oh, as an update, Mark did respond to that viewer's question, saying if you don't see it on your bill, call NYSEG and check out what you're on, day, night, or straight rate. Thank you very much, Mark. Comment from other viewers. They, meaning to that story that I had about Obama and Susan Rice crying after Trump defeated Hillary Clinton, saying they cried over Trump's win because it was going to negatively impact the bottom line of their bank accounts. Thank you very much. Another comment. Bono, being the lead singer of U2, is a leftist freak who should be more concerned with Ireland and stay the heck out of things he has no idea about. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning to you. Did I just feel a change in the barometric pressure, or was it just a synchronized gasp from the left at the thought of more Trumps in politics? That's a great point. That's why I had to bring that to you. Laura Trump saying many Trumps may run for office. Yes. I could see it being very much like Trump back in 2016, 2015 through there when they laughed, right? You remember that? They would laugh. Oh, they loved it. It was a circus that Trump doesn't stand a chance, and they would laugh, and they thought it was so entertaining. They broadcast his rallies at the time just to laugh at the people supporting him, laugh at him and what he had to say. And they didn't realize how detrimental that was to their quote-unquote case, because the people who maybe didn't like Trump started to hear what he was saying and said, that sounds good to me. So his popularity grew, but still the whole time. And I know there's compilation videos online that are so much fun to watch, where people like George Clooney saying he's never going to be president. Or you had commentators saying, oh, the best thing that ever happened to Hillary Clinton was Trump getting the nomination. And they laughed until we learned that they cried on election night. So the same would be said about any other Trump running. They will try to laugh and demean that person until until it's too late for them. Carrie Underwood, this is unbelievable. This goes to show you how the left operates. So they have, 99.9% of musicians, as we learned, who do not like Trump and Trump supporters. Carrie Underwood, all she did was sing, I think it was the Star Spangled Banner right at the inauguration. She got a backlash during a recent American Idol moment, igniting a social media firestorm over politics and being, quote, on the right side of history. On Monday, the 42-year-old American Idol judge revealed on X that she had received a less than warm reception from the audience during the long-running reality competition show Hollywood Week. Quote, spoiler alert, I got booed a lot from our Hollywood Week audience. Now, this is a line that the left uses a lot. Be on the right side of history. What that means is you have to be completely adherent to our beliefs. And those beliefs change at the drop of a hat and become more radicalized by the day. But this was in reference to them assuming that she had conservative leanings because of her performance during Trump's 2025 inauguration ceremony. Some share their opinions that the booing was an expression of disapproval from the audience over her supposed politics. As far as I know, never been involved in politics, not endorsing such as a Taylor Swift did or like that, constantly endorsing the Democrat candidate. She just happened to sing at a historic event, the inauguration of the President of the United States. Quote, LOL, you bet. You sang for a madman, said one social media user. Others saying 100% agreeing with the booing and etc. Exactly, indeed, really. When you can't come up with your own thought, just find one radicalized thought out there and put exactly underneath, or 100%, or prayer hands or something. You took the extra step of making sure literally everyone dislikes you. Respect. So literally everyone dislikes you. Not again the landslide victory of Donald Trump and the people that voted for him, but Twitter users. Okay. Go away, some said. Carrie Underwood's replies were also filled with supporters, I should mention. Good, the last thing you want is Hollywood thinking well of you, said fellow country star John Rich. You are loved by all the right people. One supporter saying, Miss Underwood, stay with your values, ma'am. You are on the right side of history and, more important, morality. Take the boos as a compliment. We are on the right side of history. Trust you will not lose your base. Probably gain more followers. Stay strong. Okay, it was America the Beautiful that she's saying. My apologies. When she took to the rotunda, there was some technical glitches. Then many detractors slammed Underwood for what they saw as a public endorsement of Trump. Mandy Moore and Ariana Grande both liked an online meme that suggested Underwood sounded off-key during the performance. Yeah, it did get very petty. The View host, Joy Behar, publicly questioned Underwood's decision, calling out what she viewed as normalizing Trump's presidency. Why am I going through all this? Just goes to show you who's Carrie Underwood, a huge star for a very long time. All it takes is performing at the inauguration for the left to turn on her and say vicious and horrible things. Another person that happens to, Kid Rock. Did you see yesterday, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and musician Kid Rock released a joint fitness-themed video promoting physical activity and Whole Foods. Kennedy posting, I've teamed up with Kid Rock to deliver two simple messages to the American people. Get active and eat real food. And it was a high-energy video titled Secretary Kennedy and Kid Rock's Rock Out Workout. Anyway. When we return, we're going to talk. I'm going to keep reading your comments. Just something real quick on Stephen Colbert. I know I don't want to spend too much time on it. It's him searching for attention, but I do have, and it ties in with Carrie Underwood in that sense of the media and the bias. They have not learned their lesson after Trump's historic win. That is crystal clear. Pop culture hasn't. The media hasn't. We're going to talk about those quickly. I do have to give you an update, and it's a quick one, on AOC and Gavin Newsom. And what else do we have? Yeah, of course, some New York updates. It's a busy morning. Glad that you've joined us. If you are just joining us, still continued breaking news because it happened about 5:30 this morning. Ex-Prince Andrew has been arrested by the UK police over Epstein-linked allegations. It's about allegedly forwarding trade documents to Epstein. If convicted on the misconduct charge, he could face a maximum sentence of life in prison. and some type of, I don't know, maybe you could say poetic justice, that they arrested him on his 66th birthday. All right, keep those messages, keep those waves coming in. We're having a blast this morning. I'm so glad that you've joined us. Don't forget, on tomorrow's broadcast, fan favorite, Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski will be joining us. That is for the full 7 o'clock hour, and I'd say tune in for both hours because sometimes he sneaks in a little bit earlier and we have a little bit more time to spend with the Assemblyman. It's a must-watch edition, like every morning is, of Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Accidents happen. If you're looking for an honest, dependable, trustworthy auto repair shop, bring it to Nappy's. Or if it's undrivable, have it towed right to us. It's your choice where to take your vehicle. Nappy's works with all insurance companies and will manage all vehicle calibrations. Nappy's has a state-of-the-art paint booth and a new and improved repair shop. Let our friendly staff of specialists help you through the process and get it done right the first time. Commit to Nappy's, family-owned for 3 generations.
Thank you for your business.
Allegiance from Elmira to Myrtle Beach starts May 22nd, 2026. Whether it's a weekend escape or a week in the sun, Myrtle Beach is closer than ever. Non-stop to sun, sand, and seaside days. From takeoff to toes in the sand, your coastal getaway starts right here at Elmira Corning Regional. Mornings on the boardwalk, afternoons on the golf course, and evenings with oceanfront dining or a flight away with Allegiant's new direct flight. Starts May 22nd, 2026. Book now at AllegiantAir.com.
Good morning, everyone. As we take a look at our forecasts ahead, we have a pretty quiet scene here, though clouds more often than not throughout the area. We do have our high temperatures nearing 50 degrees, so pretty mild. And look at our lows, well above the average, I should say. And mild weather still persisting tomorrow, but more moisture threats, more precipitation actually. And because it's so mild, it looks like rain for us. However, temperatures do drop later this week.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. This viewer writes in, President Trump's bold executive action to end the scourge of homelessness across America is long overdue. By directing federal resources toward clearing dangerous encampments, enforcing bans on urban camping and open drug use, and prioritizing treatment over endless coddling, he's tackling the root causes, addiction, mental illness, and disorder, that have turned city streets into filthy, crime-ridden zones. No more allowing taxpayer-funded chaos to blight our communities. The order empowers states and cities to remove these eyesores swiftly, redirecting funds to programs that demand sobriety, work, and real recovery instead of failed housing first models that enable dependency. It's about restoring public safety, protecting families from needles and violence in parks, and giving those truly in need humane paths to treatment rather than leaving them to rot in tents. Patriots everywhere should cheer this decisive move, to make America clean, safe, and prosperous again. Clearing homelessness isn't cruelty, it's common sense leadership that puts law-abiding citizens first and forces accountability on those who've exploited compassion for too long. Full support for getting these encampments gone nationwide. Thank you very much, viewer. I appreciate that. Comment from a different viewer. Cry away and go away. Less D and more of R. I like that. Cry away and go away. I like it. Comment from a different viewer. Carrie Underwood could make it all go away if she sang the nice new happy song by Bono. You're exactly right. I mean, that's why this has always been my thought. And I guess I just shouldn't name names, but there's quite a few. One that I think about, and I don't know her political stance. Well, according to her, she's left, which is Taylor Swift, because she was one of the ones I remember that first got criticized for not being vocal enough, for not using her soapbox, as they said. So she started to see the writing on the wall, and whatever you think of Taylor Swift, which I don't care one way or the other, but she financially knows how to play the game, even to the much to the chagrin of some of her fans who have to buy 4 of her albums because each one has one different song or one different poem in the cover or whatever. So she is definitely a capitalist. And when she saw in my theory, she saw the writing on the wall where she was getting too much pushback for not being vocal. Then all of a sudden she was a loud and proud Democrat, always endorsing and Biden and Harris. But it's so interesting how the left works, because when she endorsed, I think it was Biden, maybe it was going back far enough that it was Hillary, it wasn't quick enough. So she ends up endorsing the quote-unquote right candidate, but then it wasn't quick enough, and there's criticism there. So navigating the waters of pop culture has got to be a nightmare for some of these people. But remember, we bring up pop culture so much on this program because, as Andrew Breitbart said, politics is downstream from pop culture. Now, FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr set the record straight on Wednesday after the late-night host Stephen Colbert claimed censorship. Carr telling host Laura Ingraham, I was so close to sneezing, and I apologize if I do, quote, "This was Democrat on Democrat violence. CBS was very clear that Colbert could run the interview that he wanted with that political candidate. They just said you may have to comply with equal time. But instead of doing that, they claimed that they were victims." And that's a good point. As Kristen Flemings said, Colbert wasn't censored by Trump. He's nothing but a desperate parasite, meaning Colbert, living on Trump's thin skin. And you don't need to hear the whole history. Basically, what was interesting about it, and this is what we'll probably get to next, because I got to take a break, it was this manufactured outrage that Trump was some authoritarian, when really it was they asked Colbert for equal time, that if he's going to interview Democrat Senate hopeful James Telrico, that he would also have to interview Democrat Senate candidate Jasmine Crockett. But apparently, for whatever reason, and I'm going to tell you what the New York Post editorial board has to say about it in just a moment, but for whatever reason, he was not willing to do so. Now, Crockett, who never misses a chance to proclaim herself a victim, actually offered a rare moment of clarity that clearly gave her opponent a boost. She told reporters because of a fear that the FCC may say something to them and that there may have been advice to just have me on and then they could clear the equal time issue. It was my understanding that someone somewhere decided we just don't want to do that. Instead, we're going to just do it this way. That's right. It looks more like a Dem on Democrat hit. Yeah, to me it looks like, and that's what we're going to talk about here in a minute, Stephen Colbert doesn't want Jasmine Crockett to win the primary. That's what it boils down to, because he was told all he had to do. It wasn't Republican. He didn't have to interview Trump. He just had to interview the two candidates running for Senate, Democrat for a Senate seat in Texas. Why? You'd be the judge of why Stephen Colbert was not willing to interview Jasmine Crockett, another Democrat. Well, we'll tell you what the New York Post editorial board had to say when we return. If we have time, we may have to save it for the top of the hour. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Do you have cabin fever? Are you dreaming of warmer weather? Now's the time to start enjoying the benefits of hot water therapy during Hesselson's Cabin Fever Reliever Hot Tub Sale. With 0% interest financing and additional sales incentives, Hesselson's makes it easier to start making every day better today. Huge savings on odds and end models, 0% financing, locally owned and operated since 1955. Why wait? Now is the best time to buy that hot tub you've always wanted during Hesselson's Cabin Fever Reliever Hot Tub Sale going on now. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Ferrari Auto Team! The best hot cocoa?
Ask Google. The best ski resort? Ask Google.
The best Jeep dealer?
Ask Google. We did. Google reviews from customers rank Ferrario Jeep in Elmira the highest Jeep dealer in our area.
If you don't see me, I can't save you any money.
Check out the new Jeeps during our President's Day sales event.
Visit Ferrario in Elmira or at Ferrario.com.
Good morning, everyone. As we take a look at our forecasts ahead, we have a pretty quiet scene here, though clouds more often than not throughout the area. We do have our high temperatures nearing 50 degrees, so pretty mild. And look at our lows, well above the average, I should say. And mild weather still persisting tomorrow, but more moisture threats, more precipitation actually. And because it's so mild, it looks like rain for us. However, temperatures do drop later this week.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, wrapping up hour number one. A comment from a viewer: who cares that Taylor Swift wasn't quick to make an endorsement? Her female teeny bopper fans aren't old enough to vote anyway. Let me just say, time goes quickly, viewer. And I would say her demographic is now probably 20, 30, and 40-year-old women, all of voting age. I'm not saying they're not younger than voting age that are fans of her, not older than 40 that are fans of her. I'm just saying, it would be probably heartbreaking and sickening if we knew how many people voted just because of her endorsement. And I say that is because her diehard fans are literally willing to go out and buy, and I don't want to keep talking about Taylor Swift, but go out and buy 4 of the same albums, but expensive vinyl, probably $30 each, just because each one has a different poem inside or a different picture or a different color. It's wild. And I don't know how we got on that tangent, but quickly, do I have time for it? Yeah, let's give it a shot. What is Stephen Colbert's problem with strong black women? We ask because the late night host had such a meltdown after his bosses said he'd need to give equal time to Democrat Representative Jasmine Crockett, or they couldn't air his interview with Texas State Representative James Tallarico. You see, the two are the main candidates for Texas's Democrat Senate nomination in the March 3rd primary, with early voting already underway. Basic fairness and federal equal time laws pretty much require the so-called comic to bring Crockett on too. But Colbert apparently refused and then staged a public tantrum over it. Worse, he, with the likes of CNN's Jake Tapper playing along, pretend the order had come from the Federal Communications Commission, which in fact had not acted. Brandon Carr saying he had nothing to do with this. Though FCC Chief Brendan Carr has ruled that the late-night comedy show no longer qualifies for the exemption from equal time rules granted to news reporting, eminently defensible given how partisan and wearisome Colbert and his ilk have become. Meanwhile, the illusion of Trump administration free speech suppression has helped Tallarico raise $2.5 million off of this. So Stephen Colbert essentially tricking his viewers into supporting Tallarico on the back of a fabricated authoritarian censorship. So the injured party here definitely isn't Colbert or Tallarico, it's Jasmine Crockett. We'd love to hear Colbert explain why that doesn't. Man, they were that strange. We'd love to hear Colbert explain why that doesn't, as the usual leftist rules would suggest, make him a sexist bigot, or at least a privileged idiot. Yeah, why doesn't that make him a sexist bigot? I think that's a fair question. Why does Stephen Colbert have such a problem interviewing Jasmine Crockett? Is it because he kind of likes the attention that kind of Jimmy Kimmel got, where he can say it's Trump is after him, as the one piece basically saying he's living, Trump, of course, living rent-free in Colbert's mind, and he wants to piggyback off of Trump for success on his way out the door? I don't know. I think that's a very fair point from the New York Post. I'd love to hear your take, but we got a lot more to cover in the next hour. Getting away from that, a couple of other quick media updates, but they're very quick, and then we'll talk about AOC and some other issues. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
More cars, lower prices. Simmons Rockwell. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at a Simmons Rockwell location near you, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
State nearly $60 million towards improving key roadways across the southern tier.
Many older homes are still at risk for exposing residents to high levels of lead.
The Nani Hood Parent Resource Center once again brought the community together for its annual Halloween parade.
Around the southern tier, Finger Lake stands out for its scenery and wine scene. This year's dry drought brought some positives to the crop. Lee Com Center is looking for fans to show up and show out.
Allegiant's flight from Elmira to Myrtle Beach starts May 22nd, 2026. Whether it's a weekend escape or a week in the sun, Myrtle Beach is closer than ever. Non-stop to sun, sand, and seaside days. From takeoff to toes in the sand, your coastal getaway starts right here at Elmira Corning Regional. Mornings on the boardwalk, afternoons on the golf course, and evenings with oceanfront dining or a flight away with Allegiant's new direct flight. Starts May 22nd, 2026. Book now at Allegiant.
And we welcome you to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. If you are just joining us, last time I'm reporting on this, but it was breaking early this morning. Ex-Prince Andrew has been arrested by the United Kingdom police over Epstein-linked allegations. If convicted, it has to do with forwarding trade documents to Epstein. If convicted on the misconduct charge, Andrew faces a maximum sentence of life in prison, and the arrest occurred on his 66th birthday. Okay, comment from a viewer. Colbert looks a bit like a racist not picking Crockett. Yeah, not interviewing Crockett and sexist. Let's face it. I don't know why he's so passionate in his hatred. And remember, it wasn't the FCC that told him that. It wasn't Trump that told him that. It was his bosses saying, hey, if you're going to have on, the rules are equal time. If you're going to have on Tirico, you have to have on Crockett because the primary is going on now. The early voting is going on now, and the final vote is March 3rd. It's only right. And he refused to, and through what I think many would deem a temper tantrum that a guy, I guess, only on his way out the door could get away with throwing. I don't know. I don't know what his problem is. Maybe he'll have an answer. Oh, by the way, just quickly, speaking of the media, has kind of an update. CNN anchor Jake Tapper is said to be fuming over a new company policy that sharply restricts how on-air talent can promote their own book. Remember the criticism that he received when he had the book about why the media didn't report or why they covered up about Biden's mental decline? And I don't watch CNN, but I know many people who do were saying that it was out of control, how much it basically turned into an infomercial for his book. Tapper, who hosts The Lead and co-anchors State of the Union, is very, very unhappy with the directive from CNN chief Mark Thompson that prohibits anchors from promoting books beyond publication day. The veteran political anchor, who has authored 8 books, most recently co-wrote a bestseller about President Joe Biden's decline and his disastrous decision to seek re-election. A rollout of the book that some colleagues internally described as turning the network into a rolling infomercial. Well, on February 4th, CNN updated its standards guide in what Breaker reported was a direct response to Tapper's on-air promotions. We should not mix news and advertising, even when what is being advertised is work by a leading CNN journalist. Ooh. Under the new guidelines, anchors may acknowledge publication of a book on its release date if it can be put into a journalistic segment, but they should not promote it following publication day on their own programs. They also bar the use of websites, QR codes, or links to drive personal sales and require CNN authors to meet with members of the executive leadership team to approve any rollout plan tied to the CNN platforms. Wow, they're rewriting their rules because of what the Daily Beast, the far-left Daily Beast, says was Biden book fiasco. Now, the Daily Beast doesn't like the idea that the book criticized the media, and it was all a cover-up. It was all to cover themselves, their you-know-whats after the fact. But they didn't like that it had anything, dared to talk bad about Biden. So they're calling it the Biden book fiasco. Anyway, changing the rules. I just thought that was interesting. Okay, so AOC. Speaking of the media, yesterday we talked, you could argue maybe too much about this, but AOC gave her what some described a disastrous speech at Munich. She was at Munich because she wanted to dip her toe in foreign affairs so that she could be the next president of the United States in 2028. So not being used to ask anybody asking her tough questions, really just sticking to the talking points somebody gave her is her normal response. When she was asked some questions, there was flub after flub. When she even gave her speech, obviously she got where Venezuela was wrong, where it's located wrong. She did not have an answer for if China attacks Taiwan. It's very basic information. And then you had word salad after word salad. So it did go bad. Well, she was outraged that the media dared to criticize her. And trust me, they put on kid gloves even then. I think CNN put it that she was humbled. So they put it very, very kindly, but even that was enough to outrage her because, of course, she specifically, but the Democrat Party in general, is not used to having anybody in the media be critical of them. If anything, I mean, especially with AOC, messianic language sometimes for her, glowing praise for her, never any criticism. So when she receives some criticism, especially in her first day out the gate for a potential 2028 presidential run, she was outraged. So she goes to where any good leftist would go, the New York Times, and they write essentially a press release defending her, saying, quoting her as saying, and I'm paraphrasing myself, but essentially that she hated the fact that some little mistakes, 5-10 seconds taken out of context, something like that, which is not true, would erase the important speech she gave on authoritarianism that was loved by those in Europe, loved and praised, and just, so the New York Times had no problem with that. So The View yesterday weighed in on the controversy, and even they agreed that there was some embarrassing gaffes. I think probably the biggest gaffe, there's a lot, but not having any answer for the clash with China and Taiwan. Co-host Whoopi Goldberg introduced a clip of Ocasio-Cortez stammering through her answer, which was not even an answer, noting that, quote, the right is seizing on how she was a little verklempt coming out of the gate. A little. See how you have to be careful there? A little. That was disaster. And it's not it's not always the right is seizing on. Here is a woman who wants to be taken seriously for a presidential candidate in 2028. It should be all media that is reporting on it, but somehow it's the right is seizing, and that, I know that's become a talking point for many on the right that say this is the excuse they always use so they can talk about it, that the right is seizing or the right's attacking when it is something that should be reported on. We don't need to talk about Whoopi Goldberg anymore, but after playing the clip of the Congresswoman struggling to answer what the U.S. should commit troops to defend Taiwan from China, if they should, they proceeded to show conservatives mocking her gaffes, followed by a montage of President Trump making a brief verbal flub. So you see, you still, if you're going to report on AOC, even the most minuscule criticism, you better be ready to present something to mock Trump with. And the reason I bring this up, and they did report on her gaffe, if you want to call it reporting, but listen to what Joy Behar had to say. She gave, I would say, a mixed defense of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, saying, quote, it sounded a little humana, but you know, compared to Trump, it's like Mensa. Yes, she sounds like a genius with that answer compared to Trump. And then they wonder why the term TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, has become so prevalent, so used by many. Guest host Savannah Chrisley said, mispronouncing a word is totally different than not knowing your position on Taiwan. That is hitting it out of the park. That's exactly what needs to be said. It's not the right seizing on a flub, because remember, during Biden, you couldn't talk about that either. Now, Biden's, of course, was because of his mental decline, but that was something that was said. They seize on a mistake. Don't you remember he had a stutter? How dare you report on it? In this case, it's, Trump is the bad one. She got tongue twisted. It wasn't tongue twisted. Just like Savannah Chrisley said, mispronouncing a word is totally different than not knowing your position on Taiwan, which anybody, word of the wise, if you're thinking about running for president of the United States in as short as a few years, 3 years, you better know the answer to that question or have an opinion, at least, on that question. Chrisley continued, and that's important, and what's important is how you recover from something. Trump, you know, he has done things, he has continued on with his speech and then continued on to meet with world leaders. So the recovery is what mattered, and AOC just didn't have a recovery. That's exactly right. It wasn't about how, it wasn't a mispronunciation, something like that. It was the fact that she did not have an answer on that and on many other questions, hence the word salads, much like Kamala Harris before her. Sunny Hostin defended AOC's overall message on the world stage, particularly her calling out the rise of authoritarianism, but blundered while trying to pronounce authoritarianism, sparking laughter from her co-host. I don't think she handled this particular answer very well, said Sarah Haynes. I don't assume everybody will have the perfect answer for geopolitics, but the one place I'm a little more critical of her is considering that Ukraine and Russia have been in a war for 4 years. This is a conversation that comes up not just at this table, but at work, but with friends. She said that ultimately this was not a shining moment for her, but suggested her critics would have pounced on whatever she had said. Quote, as someone who has stepped in much poo over the years, it's just a little message to everybody. None of us are perfect, and this does happen. People stumble. When Behar brought up another gaffe, mixing up Iceland and Greenland, Chrisley replied by noting that AOC had also been mistaken about the location of Venezuela. That was another gaffe. That was certainly another gaffe. That's the point, Goldberg said. They're not perfect. They're annoying because they want you to think they're perfect, but they're not. Okay. So, yeah, compared to Trump, what AOC said was mensa level brilliance, according to The View. But again, it all boils down to she did not have an answer. And it's not seizing on it. It's saying that if you are going to step to that world stage and you're going to talk at Munich, of all places, talk badly about where your country's headed, talk about Israel being involved in a genocide, which in Munich, of all places, we talked about that yesterday. If you're going to say that type of disgusting speech, be prepared to also be criticized when you make your mistakes and when you say outrageous things like that. She does not get a free pass on everything. Would I prefer The View talking about her belief on Israel because of how I think low and despicable it is? Yeah. But you bring up the gaffes because she invited that. She invited that by going to the world stage and pretending to be a presidential candidate, dipping her toe in the water. As a matter of fact, well, we got one other thing on this, and then Gavin Newsom as well, but I see that we're running a little late. So stay with us. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
With the games in full swing, stop in Hesselson's today and see why Ona Sauna will bring calmness and stress relief naturally. Infrared, traditional rock saunas, and hybrid saunas. Hesselson's has them all on display in their expanded and remodeled showroom. Better circulation. Detox the skin through sweating. Feeling refreshed and rejuvenated. Now is the time to make every day better with your own sauna, starting at just $39.99. And remember, after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
From Excel member service to easy, reliable, and secure digital banking and a deep commitment to the communities we call home, First Heritage is proud to be part of our members' everyday lives. That's why we're honored to be named Best Credit Union in the Twin Tiers 5 years in a row and Best Locally Owned Business in 2025. To our members, thank you for your trust, your loyalty, and your votes. And if you're not yet a member, visit fhfcu.org or stop by your local branch and see for yourself what makes First Heritage the best.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think about calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that can happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone.
Good morning, everyone. As we take a look at our forecasts ahead, we have a pretty quiet scene here, though clouds more often than not throughout the area. We do have our high temperatures nearing 50 degrees, so pretty mild. And look at our lows, well above the average, I should say. And mild weather still persisting tomorrow, but more moisture threats, more precipitation actually. And because it's so mild, it looks like rain for us. However, temperatures do drop later this
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are Back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. So Ross Barkan writes for the New Yorker, and he said it was supposed to be a triumphant foreign visit for AOC, who is, on the national level, quote, the best current hope for the American left. Keep that in mind. Since Zohran Mamdani is foreign-born and therefore barred from being president, AOC is the brightest star to conceivably make a White House run in 2028. Now, I find this interesting because I would have thought it would be Gavin Newsom. But Ross Barkan's saying the biggest, best hope for the Democrat Party is AOC. Her appearance at the Munich Security Conference, one of the world's premier foreign policy events, seemed to be a step in the direction of higher office. If she doesn't run for president, she could be a formidable primary challenger for Senator Chuck Schumer. It's not hard to imagine AOC in 2029 becoming the junior senator from New York. Though she acquitted herself well in a majority of the interviews. What in the world is that? We got a bunch of waves going on out there. All right. I don't even know how to show it. Let me see. I mean, I do know how to show it, but... Oh, no, they took them away. Hey, guys, look at that. We got a bunch of waves. All right, going back to AOC. I got to count all those. I'll explain later. So what it says here, and I think it boils down to... Let me see. I'm not going to get to it in time. Sorry, guys. There we go. There's our waves. Thumbs up and a thumbs down. I appreciate it. All right. And waves coming in on the email as well. Okay. Though she acquitted herself well in the majority of the interviews and panels in Munich, one stumble stood out, demonstrating she hasn't yet fully conceived a foreign policy vision. It also is warning for progressives. It's vital to approach certain foreign policy and national security issues, including China's potential invasion of Taiwan, in a more sophisticated manner. So this goes through to talk about her defense, or try to defend her, about her stance and being better prepared. But it's also in this view, in this Ross Barkan's mind, it's also a signal to the left. They better be prepared with questions like this. If Ocasio-Cortez wants to become more fluent on foreign policy, she'll have to think harder about these sorts of questions, as will the rest of the Democratic Party, which still must make a case for itself in 2028 and beyond. Right now, there are few genuine, sophisticated voices on the left when it comes to global affairs. It's not clear any other potential 2028 candidate would have delivered better answers than AOC, even if they may not have paused for so long. Are Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro, and Gretchen Whitmer ready to tell the American public that their neighbors, friends, and loved ones should die to keep Taiwan free? The same, wow, this, you can tell this is coming from the left. The same goes for Donald Trump. Going between rank imperialism and isolationism throughout his years in power. No one really has leveled with the nation. AOC maybe could be ready to do so soon. So saying that basically her answer was wrong because she was not vocal enough in her support of, we don't care about Taiwan. Wow, this gets into a weird place, doesn't it? And I'm surprised that they say that AOC is the best candidate for the job. Most, in my opinion, in the media and others, the commentators and those on the left, have been pushing Gavin Newsom for quite some time. If you recall, when Biden, before he was out, he was campaigning for Biden in a way that many saw was in case Biden wasn't ready to run, couldn't run for re-election, that Newsom would be there to step in. Of course, that did not ultimately happen. We don't have to relitigate all that. But Gavin Newsom has been campaigning for president now for years. And many people in the media have been pushing for him. I think some are seeing through it with the shtick about trying to be like Trump. Then they see his performance at the world stage and saying, wow, there's a lot of issues happening in California right now. And yet, here you are, constantly going overseas, making what he's trying to present himself as, and we talked about this the other day with Gavin Newsom, is that he's trying to be the fill-in diplomat. That because our president is quote-unquote so bad that he's the one that's going to step in and really do the negotiating. So that's why he made that Green Deal with Britain just the other day. But if you look at his poll numbers in California, He is still, remember, far left California. They found that 45% of voters disapprove of the governor's job performance. That's the highest number since October of 2024 and a 6-point increase from December of 2025. Among 1,000 registered voters, Governor Newsom had an approval rating of 44%, a 3-point drop from December. Now, why I bring that up, and I'll tell you about it when we return, Bill Wallen writes that the clock's running out for globetrotting Newsom. So he's ignoring his state. Now, he is term limited, so he can't run again. And right now, it looks like Eric Swalwell may be the favorite in that race. And I don't know if you saw the information that recently broke on Eric Swalwell about some past, we'll say, what kind of word do I want to use? Questionable writings. Questionable is not right. A little bit behind closed doors kind of writing. It got a little bit intense. But Eric Swalwell is the favorite. Gavin Newsom can't run again. So he, I guess, is leaving his state kind of in the lurch, saying, I'm going to run for president. I'm going to go everywhere that I want to go. All right. We'll tell you about that in a moment as well. We do have some New York State updates. Well, I've got an update for you about the Salvation Army of Corning as well. Don't forget, tomorrow, Joe Sempolinski will be our guest. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Stay with us.
Everyone knows William Mattar. Everyone knows James Cook. But what you probably don't know is that they bonded when Bill suggested to let James cook.
Delicious.
And James said they should just share the number 4.
Nice.
Now they're teaming up to raise money for Build Promise.
Get this t-shirt at BuildPromise.com.
For a limited time, if you purchase this t-shirt, a portion of the proceeds go to Build Promise.
Allegiance from Elmira to Myrtle Beach starts May 22nd, 2026. Whether it's a weekend escape or a week in the sun, Myrtle Beach is closer than ever. Non-stop to sun, sand, and seaside days. From takeoff to toes in the sand, your coastal getaway starts right here at Elmira Corning Regional. Mornings on the boardwalk, afternoons on the golf course, and evenings with oceanfront dining or a flight away with Allegiant's new direct flight. Starts May 22nd, 2026. Book now at AllegiantAir.com.
In our real journey since 2014, when I first had my injury, I realized that my home was just not working for me and that it was time to ask for help. Homes for Our Troops is really giving me my life back. The shower allows me to go in and turn around with my chair, pull down storage racks, automated door systems, hours of my morning given back to me. Adaptive sports are a huge part of my life, a huge part of my healing journey as well. Homes for Our Troops helped with making sure that I had a home gym so that I can continue to train. This past year, I was able to host Thanksgiving in my home. And it was the first time I was able to have my whole family in one place and I was able to contribute to the meal. There are a lot more veterans in need and Homes for Our Troops is going to be there to help them too.
Homes for Our Troops builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans and enables them to rebuild their lives. Join our mission at HFOTUSA.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. We got a couple comments from viewers. Before that, I know I've been hitting around at this for quite some time, but I've got the official word the other day, and I keep forgetting to mention it. I'll show you this certificate of appreciation presented proudly to Frankly Speaking from the Salvation Army, Captain Brittany and Brian Bender, giving us that nice certificate of appreciation. Yes, we did, with the final tally coming in, we did hit our goal, went over our goal a little bit. Our goal was to raise $6,000 during the telethon because that would be matched by a very generous donor of another $6,000. So for every dollar you donated, it was kind of like $2. You heard me say this perhaps too much during Christmas, but we really wanted to hit that $6,000 goal. We ultimately did. So that means the Salvation Army, we all luck out, the whole community luck out, but the Salvation Army receiving $12,000 thanks to you, the generous viewers of Frankly Speaking. I can't thank you enough. And that's so nice of them. I like it. It's made out to Frankly Speaking as well. So we'll have that hanging in the office here soon. I can't believe I forgot to tell you before this. All right, a couple comments from viewers. The best part of the Colbert interview with Torico was picked up by the Babylon Bee. Now, if you're not familiar with the Babylon Bee, it's a satirical website that can be very funny at times. The headline of the Babylon Bee was, "Progressive explains Democrats can be Christians too if they just ignore everything in the Bible." Well, I did not. Did you watch the interview? I know they posted it online. You couldn't see it during Colbert's show. And that's why Jasmine Crockett was so upset, because it really benefited Torico so much more than if they would have just played the interview originally on the air. Comment from a different viewer. "The View has to defend AOC. After all, their claim to fame is being ignorant of the facts in general." Thank you very much. I mentioned Gavin Newsom. Bill Wallen says the clock's running out for him. He's been criticized for his recent rhetoric at Munich, also at Davos. He's trying to be, some have said Trump-esque. I don't really see it, but he's trying to be aggressive, and the shtick is starting to fall flat. But as he is globetrotting, he's neglecting the real problem, and that's back home. It's not so much leaving his state that's a problem, as it is Newsom's lack of follow-up and follow-through with matters back home. And we saw Halle Berry, the actress, calling that out at a forum that Newsom was actually at. In case you missed it, there's a pattern to Newsom's wanderlust. The Golden State governor's heads everywhere else in America or overseas, so he can keep that attention going on his presidential buzz and his popularity with those on the left over his kind of trolling, if you will, of President Trump, only to return to California and to stage a public display of his commitment to his day job in Sacramento. It happened in November of 2023, not long after Newsom's China tour, most memorable for Newsom plowing over a kid on a Beijing basketball court. Remember that? On his return, he held a Los Angeles media availability during which the governor informed reporters that a fire that had shut down a portion of 10 freeways was the work of an arsonist. The pattern repeated itself this month on the heels of Newsom's appearance at Davos, with the governor showing up in rural Kern County to hail the progress of California's beleaguered high-speed rail project. And they go through the whole history of this, that as soon as he returns, he shows that he's doing his day job. Come summertime and a deal to enact a new state budget, Newsom likely will boast that California's finances are in fine fettle. Never mind that the next governor likely will be swimming in a sea of red ink during his or her first term, thanks to a structural deficit made possible by years of Newsom-signed budgets in which spending outpaced revenue and inflation. Yes, and if you looked at his what he has done with the finances of California, it's terrifying to think that if he did make it to the White House, what our finances would look like. And then it says here, just to wrap up, because we know that the New York Post is doing a great job reporting from California, but as for the human misery on California's streets, the ongoing policy failure is more chronic than it is seasonal. It's now 22 years since then Mayor Newsom rolled out a 10-year plan to end homelessness in San Francisco. While the governor took a victory lap last month for a 9% drop in unsheltered homeless from the previous year, homelessness is in fact up 14% statewide during his tenure. The irony is hard to overlook. While Newsom travels abroad, assuring the world that Donald Trump is temporary, he too is a temporary fixture on the California stage, a term-limited governor with 10-plus months remaining in office. Each day Newsom spends outside the Golden State is one less day he could have stayed at home, addressing a Swiss cheese record that will come under scrutiny if indeed he attempts to succeed Trump. Otherwise, the same California governor, eager to take his talents to the early presidential primary states, is a living manifestation of a Robert Frost poem. Gavin Newsom has many miles to go and far too many promises uncapped. That's Bill Wallen from the Hoover Institute. So those are the big names. I didn't realize Gretchen Whitmer was on the short list, but according to that New Yorker piece, of course, friendly to the Democrat candidates running for president, I did not realize that she was on that short list. Kind of interesting. All right. How are we doing on time? We're doing good. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in. We got a few things here on ice. Let's go to New York State politics for a moment, because we have a few things here about Mamdani, a couple of things about politics in general. It's one of those kind of busy mornings where there's no way to segue. Though we had talked earlier, I can't remember what the piece was, who it was, but they were criticizing ICE for suggesting that they were going to churches and schools. But I found this to be very interesting at Fox News. Maybe something that has gone by the wayside because the media doesn't report on it. But in America, it says here, in America, over the past 25 years, nearly 380 violent incidents at religious institutions have produced almost 490 deaths and hundreds of injuries. These attacks have not been confined to troubled neighborhoods or high-crime areas. They have erupted during quiet Sunday services in rural chapels and suburban parishes alike. Evil has shown up where grandmothers pray, where children sing, and where families gather in faith. So the piece is entitled, America's Churches Are Under Siege as Violence Increasingly Invades Sacred Ground. And this ties in, which I don't have an update on, but if you recall when we talked about Don Lemon and that group protesting ICE in that church service, during that church service, and the kids and men, women, and children who were crying, running out of there, thinking that this was going to be an attack on a church because that has become so prevalent. But they're saying that, I don't know, no one is safe from protests, that they have a First Amendment right to protest in the church on private property. It's a convoluted argument. You've heard us talk about it a million times. But I thought this was very fascinating because you do not see the coverage that you once did. The pattern is impossible to ignore, writes Nicole Velasco. Violent acts against houses of worship have occurred in more than 30 states, crossing denominational lines and geographic boundaries. No church is too quiet, too humble, or too far off the cultural radar to be considered untouchable. Violence in churches may occur less frequently than other crimes, but frequency is not the point. Consequence is. When violence invades a house of worship, the damage is catastrophic and deeply personal. These are not anonymous buildings. They are sacred spaces filled with families, children, and elders who assume, reasonably, that they are safe. An attack on a church is not merely a crime, it is an assault on the very idea that holy ground still exists in America. The trend did not emerge in a vacuum. It reflects a broader cultural decay, a society increasingly indifferent and at times openly hostile to faith and tradition. In too many countries, or in too many corners of the society, disrespect for the sacred eventually becomes permission for the profane. Words create climates, and climates eventually produce action. Just as schools train for modern threats, and this is what it boils down to, churches must implement layered security, establish trained safety teams, coordinate with law enforcement, and rehearse emergency response. Security should be as intentional as the sermon and as disciplined as the choir. Preparation is stewardship. When the places where we pray, teach our children, and sing our hymns are under siege, the question is no longer about church security. It is about the character of the nation that still claims to cherish freedom. This is our moment to wake up, to think clearly, and to act boldly. Not just to protect churches, but to protect the idea that Americans can openly worship without fear. That idea is not optional. It is foundational. So I thought that was a wonderful piece and something, again, that's been reported on in the past, but kind of fallen by the wayside. All right, when we come back, we are going to talk about New York State issues, and then we have a couple just random things. If you are just joining us, the story broke early this morning that ex-Prince Andrews has been arrested in connection to the Epstein files. Not a lot is known at this point, just that he was arrested, that the charge could be with a maximum sentence of life in prison, and also that it all came down on his 66th birthday. That is all we know as of right now. So there we go. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in.
New York State is putting nearly $60 million towards improving key roadways across the southern tier.
Many older homes are still at risk for exposing residents to high levels of lead.
The Nani Hood Parent Resource Center once again brought the community together for its annual Halloween parade.
Around the southern tier, the Finger Lake stands out for its scenery and wine scene. This year's dry drought brought some positives to the crop. LeCom Center is looking for fans to show up and show out.
Lease a brand new 2025 Subaru Forester Limited Hybrid all-wheel drive featuring heated steering wheel and power liftgate for only $329 a month for 36 months. Make car buying simple. Drive your deal at Simmons Rockwell Subaru in Big Flats.
When it comes to cleaning your house, house or business, Magic Rags Cleaning Service has you covered from ceiling to floor. With powerful steam cleaning and attention to detail, we have you covered for moving out cleans, move-in cleans, Airbnbs, or just keeping everything neat and tidy. We go above and beyond in our residential and commercial cleaning, and our professional crew makes sure that your house or business is always ready for company. Call our number or schedule an appointment on Yelp or Facebook today.
Good morning, everyone. As we take a look at our forecasts ahead, we have a pretty quiet scene here, though clouds more often than not throughout the area. We do have our high temperatures nearing 50 degrees, so pretty mild. And look at our lows, well above the average, I should say. And mild weather still persisting tomorrow, but more moisture threats, more precipitation actually. And because it's so mild, it looks like rain for us. However, temperatures do drop later.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Comments from viewers. I'm embarrassed to say that I did watch part of the Tallarico interview on Stephen Colbert, only because some of my crazy left Facebook friends said the Republicans were afraid of losing their seat to this amazing Tallarico. But once again, the left fell for another deception. I did hear Tallarico say that his grandfather was a Baptist minister and said there were only two things required to be a Christian. Okay, well that's kind of, if you look at it with, isn't it Eric Swalwell who always pushes this idea of his parents were, or his father was in law enforcement, or his grandfather, and then you look at his record. It is strange. Comment from Ken. He said, I heard something in passing yesterday. Someone was trying to spin the deficit in New York City as being created by the Republicans. Did you hear anything about this? I did not. I know that Mamdani was trying to blame Adams, not a Republican, trying to blame Adams. That's interesting. I have a couple things here about the budget that are going to get your blood boiling because it kind of ties in with what you're saying there. So that's kind of interesting. Comment from a different viewer. I would love to see a debate between Joe Sempolinski and the richer guy who writes in. Do it on specific topics. Joe is always so factual and not emotional. That's true. I always look forward to having Joe on, and I think in the past Joe's answered to something that Rick sent in. So yes, Joe Sempolinski will be our guest in the 7 o'clock hour tomorrow. We look forward to talking with him. So there was a piece yesterday, kind of to what Ken was saying. Would raising taxes on the richest New Yorkers drive them away? When I saw that headline, you could tell which direction it was coming from, and I don't have to read it all to you. Their argument is that no, that the rich in New York want to pay more money just for the honor of living in New York and not a state like Texas or Florida. New York imposes among the highest taxes in the country, and that's especially true for city dwellers who are hit by additional local taxes. And those taxes may climb further as Ron Mamdani and Kathy Hochul continue to feud. Now, again, Hochul keeps saying no, that she is not going to participate in the taxing of the rich. But then Mamdani comes out with that negotiating tactic of saying, okay, if you don't want to tax the rich, we're going to go after the middle class with a 9.5% property tax increase. So there you go. Now there's tension there. But back to this piece, and it's by Greg David. Mamdani's preference is to raise income tax on the wealthiest, the biggest generator of revenue, and on corporations. But for that to happen, he would need Albany to sign off, and Hochul has long said these tax hikes are off the table, even as she recently gifted the city an additional $1.5 billion in state aid over the next 2 years. Kind of another slap in the face to Governor Hochul, giving that kind of giveaway to Mamdani, and he said it's not enough. So he said, again, a 9.5% property tax increase is, quote, the only tools currently available for the city. But would increases to the state's already high taxes send the wealthiest residents and biggest businesses to other states? Or would they just be accepted as part of doing business in the financial capital of the global economy? We already learned that it's not what it used to be. In Texas, a lot are moving. They're calling their financial capital Y'all Street, which I love that. No one would believe that suddenly people and businesses, let me start that again. Andrew Rain, president of the Citizens Budget Commission, said no one should believe that suddenly people and businesses will leave in droves tomorrow if taxes are raised. But doing so does chop away at our competitive foundation over time. I think if you look at the numbers, I would highly disagree with that. No one should believe. Well, I don't know if I believe Andrew Rain. And if you saw in Texas where they proposed a billionaire tax, how many, it was like $1 trillion and some dollars they lost in revenue with people not taking that threat lightly. And that wasn't even in the works. So no, not so. No one's going to leave because even higher taxes in New York. Nathan Gusdorf, executive director of the Fiscal Policy Institute, a progressive group that supports Mamdani, has been calling for income and corporate tax increases for several years, said, quote, the most powerful regional economies have high taxes. Based on our research, we seem to be in zones where you can raise the tax rate and not see any impact on relocation. As we had story after story these last weeks about people leaving for Texas, leaving for Florida, and we've talked about it with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano so often on this program, the wealthy are leaving and they're being replaced by people with not as much wealth. And then you have the issues that we have with taxes and the budget. All these taxes flow through and result in lower hiring and prices. That's why I pay less for groceries in the suburbs where I live than I would in the city, and why we are seeing a shift out of people, said Anna Champy. The Fiscal Policy Institute says that low-tax states also have weak economies. Quote, if there were a strong correlation between tax rates and business environments, the Dakotas would have strong economies. However, he admits that doesn't apply to Texas and Florida, who are both fast-growing economies, especially in financial services. Texas ranks 6th lowest in the Tax Foundation ranking, and Florida is 11th. Not surprisingly, the mayor thinks higher taxes won't mean flight from the city, saying, I do not believe that there would be an outward migration. And I think that we are facing right now is an outward migration because of the absence of an affordability agenda. Remember, an affordability agenda means that the government gives you things. That has been Mamdani's pitch from the beginning. Now, yeah, we're doing good on time. Robert Reich, remember Robert Reich from the Clinton administration? He says, yesterday, New York City's new mayor, Zohran Mamdani, proposed raising property taxes in the city by nearly 10%. If he can't persuade Kathy Hochul to raise income taxes on the wealthy, she's been reluctant. In California, meanwhile, Google co-founder Sergey Brin, along with former Google CEO Eric Schmidt and other billionaires, are financing several voter initiatives to limit the creation of a new billionaire tax in California. Gavin Newsom is against that billionaire's tax. Why are the governors of the most progressive and richest states in America so unenthusiastic about raising taxes on the wealthiest of the wealthy? The kindest answer is they're worried that the rich will abandon their states. The unkinder is that they're in the pockets of said rich. Ooh. So Mr. Reich, Robert Reich, is suggesting that maybe Newsom and Hochul are paid off. My humble advice to Governors Hochul and Newsom, don't worry about raising taxes on the rich. True, a few rich people may abandon New York or California if taxes on them are raised, but evidence suggests a vast majority will stay. I'm so fascinated by pieces like this. So you're supposed to ignore what you've seen with your eyes, what you've heard happening in the city, because Robert Reich says, a few rich people, but overall, the vast majority will stay put. When billionaire New York Mayor Mike Bloomberg faced a budget deficit in his first term, he raised property taxes by 18.5%. Rich New Yorkers threatened to leave. Most did not. I would love to know what the difference in what their metrics of Mr. Reich is. But the question must be asked, is California really that much worse for losing Thiel, Musk, and Zuckerberg? Maybe raising taxes on the super rich not only provides critically needed tax revenue, but also acts as a kind of disinfectant, purging a city or state of a few of its most noxious and socially irresponsible inhabitants. Another reason to do so. So not only is it great because they can tax the wealthy, who they obviously, Reich has made it very clear, do not like, but maybe you'll get rid of people like Thiel, Musk, and Zuckerberg. Now, Zuckerberg, not necessarily political, but Musk and Thiel, he's saying, he's pointing to kind of Republican donations, saying that is who you want gone. So if that's the case, it's a positive on two parts. You get rid of your political enemy and you give away more freebies from government. Interesting argument made by Mr. Robert Reich from the Clinton administration. All right. One update, and we got a couple other New York State updates, but I realize I have I don't have enough time. We'll talk about this when we come back. A couple of more New York updates. I see a lot of comments and a lot of waves coming in. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
It's the Jeep President's Day sales event at Chilson Wilcox. Enjoy huge savings on the most awarded SUV brand ever, Jeep. Jeep loyalty means bigger savings for current Jeep and Stellantis owners. Save $8,300 on a 2025 Jeep Grand Cherokee. From Wranglers to Grand Cherokees, every Jeep is priced to move, but these savings won't last forever, and it's Ram Truck Month too. Save $10,500 on a 2026 Ram 1500 and $9,000 on a 2026 Ram 2500. The Jeep President's Day sales event and Ram Truck Month happening now at Chilson Wilcox.
From exceptional member service to easy, reliable, and secure digital banking and a deep commitment to the communities we call home, First Heritage is proud to be part of our members' everyday lives. That's why we're honored to be named Best Credit Union in the Twin Tiers 5 years in a row and Best Locally Owned Business in 2025. To our members, thank you for your trust, your loyalty, and your votes. And if you're not yet a member, visit fhfcu.org or stop by your local branch and see for yourself what makes First Heritage the best.
Good morning, everyone. As we take a look at our forecasts ahead, we have a pretty quiet scene here, though clouds more often than not throughout the area. We do have our high temperatures nearing 50 degrees, so pretty mild. And look at our lows, well above the average, I should say. And mild weather still persisting tomorrow, but more moisture threats, more precipitation actually. And because it's so mild, it looks like rain for us. However, temperatures do drop later this week.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Heselson studio. Some comments from viewers. Mark writes in, speaking of taxing the rich, which Mamdani wants to do, Governor Newsom in California said he is not going to tax the rich, claiming it will drive out business. Hochul has said she doesn't want to tax the rich either. I don't know where that will go. With Newsom, they saw it instantly. So there was this billionaire tax idea floated around. It had not made it in any way, shape, or form to the finish line, but it was enough to leave. And the number doesn't exactly stick in my head, but it was something like $1 trillion worth of wealth left the state just on that veiled threat. Obviously, it's going to draw people away. But Zohran Mamdani, lead to this mass exodus. But Zohran Mamdani doesn't care. This is what he ran on. He's got to make good. He's already failed on some of his major policies that he pushed during the campaign, so he can't be seen as caving. That's a big one. You see it at the rallies of tax the rich. You saw Hochul being ridiculed by the chance of tax the rich. So he's got to be very careful. That's one he can't concede on, and that's why he essentially threatened Governor Hochul with the 9.5% property tax increase. Comment from a different viewer: if taxes don't matter, why has Corning Inc. sent so many jobs to lower tax states? And you can point to any big business. We've talked about the struggles of any companies coming to New York. It's not so much if they're going to come, because we don't believe they will. It's what they do while they're here or already established. That's where most of the focus is. Ken writes in, I have to say you're sounding like an individualist and not part of Mamdani's collective. Thank you very much. Mamdani, I'm telling you, it really is interesting to watch, not necessarily wanting to focus on too much of New York City issues, but Mamdani leaving Hochul in the lurch, and Democrats scrambling with brazen tax the rich ultimatums, calling it a slap in the face. More than one local Democrat exclaimed, it's an election year, when asked about Mamdani's demand. That's a good point. Zohran, and I don't want to say it's maybe he's new to politics. This may just be what he sees as his leverage. Queensboro President Donovan Richards said middle-class homeowners shouldn't be used as a bargaining chip. Yeah, Democrats in his own party upset because they again scream that it is an election year. Richard feared Mamdani's big move could jeopardize the Democrat Party's momentum going into the November election season, where Hochul, who is running for re-election, will be at top of the ticket. Quote, we don't want to give Republicans talking points while we're trying to win back the House of Representatives. State Assemblyman Michael Benedetto said bluntly, I'm not enthusiastic about raising taxes in an election year. Do you notice that? Is that the way you would word it? Not enthusiastic about raising taxes in an election year. Any other time, I'm fine with it. Not an election year, so I can keep my job. The move put Hochul in a tight spot ahead of her re-election bid in which she'll face Bruce Blakeman. Man, imagine the field day Elise Stefanik would be having with this. We know the history of it. But this is a crisis of his own making, according to Ken Gardine, saying that the high cost of operating all city agencies stem partially from New York City employees uniquely contributing nothing towards their health insurance premiums. Mamdani's budget expects health insurance costs to spike by 14%, with the entire cost absorbed by taxpayers. Requiring employee contribution even below the 12 to 31% paid by New York State workers could save an estimated $675 million annually. For a mayor elected on a promise of affordability, Mamdani owes New Yorkers a good faith attempt to curb government spending before reaching into hardworking property owners' pockets to foot the bill. Now, we know the budget cuts, and this should come as no surprise as someone who in the past was very vocal about defunding the police. Mamdani proposed New York City budget has cuts for the NYPD, also canceling new hires. Mamdani canceled a previous order by Adams to aim to hire 5,000 more NYPD officers going into 2026. He also canceled all orders from Adams that followed his indictment in September of 2024. Anyway, so cutting the New York Police Department's budget as well as canceling new hires. We got to take a break, and then we are going to wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. So stay with us, get your last second comments and waves in, and we will be right back.
More cars, lower prices. Simmons Rockwell. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at a Simmons Rockwell location near you, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Month after month, year after year, even decades you've paid into the insurance system. You've done your part. But when you're seriously injured in a car accident or another tragedy, that system turns its back. Insurance companies care more about pumping up profits and stock prices than paying for your medical bills, your lost wages, or your recovery. At WYDC Injury Law, we fight to make them pay what's fair. If you've been hurt in New York or Pennsylvania, call 607-500-HURT. Don't let the insurance companies win.
Kyle just made a decision that would change his whole world.
Hey, you're sober? You drive.
Kyle just made a decision that would change his whole world. Drive.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, getting ready to wrap up today's edition. A couple comments from viewers. These fiscally irresponsible elected officials can't fathom cutting costs, but always want to increase taxes. We are dangerously close to the conditions of our forefathers during the American Revolution. Well, the high taxes, but in this case we have representation. The representation is just pushing higher taxes. A comment from a different viewer. All we hear from Democrats is raise taxes. Take more from the people. Never stop the waste and fraud. And there's been a lot of discussion about the waste and fraud in New York State, that it should be investigated thoroughly, just like in Minnesota. And comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, and thank you for the umbrella emoji. It's a little wet out there. I fear we've seen nothing yet. And when I hear locals say, what are you concerned about? It's New York City. I want to crawl out of my skin. I agree. The fact that people take it so lightly is remarkable to me. So we're just getting ready to wrap up. My guests are here for a different interview. Good morning. I'm live on the air, so don't cuss. Okay. But so we are wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. A quick note before we go. And where did I put it? I was so excited to tell you about it. Oh, there it is. Tomorrow's guest, Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski, former congressman, current assemblyman. He held a town hall in Salamanca. This is his 7th town hall. We've been keeping a close watch on these because he made it a part of his campaign, and we're going to ask him about it tomorrow. There's a picture. He said we had a great discussion, and I wanted to thank everyone who made the time to come to the town hall and share their concerns and advice with me and give me an opportunity to talk about what I'm doing in Albany and being their voice in the Assemblyman. I also want to thank Salamanca Mayor Sandy Majera for opening the meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance and for hosting us. So topics included, of course, a $260 billion state budget proposal, cashless ballot, these type of things. So that is from Joe Sempolinski, who is going to be our guest tomorrow on the program, starting at 7 a.m. So do not miss out on that. Also, since we're going through some housekeeping here, next week on Wednesday's broadcast, we'll be talking with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. We haven't had him on a little bit. A lot is unfolded in the county, so we'll be talking with him on Wednesday, and then the next Friday after that, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. So we've got all the guests lined up next week. And again, tomorrow, Joe Sempolinski. All right, that does it for today's edition. Oh, Ken mentioned this yesterday. I do have 10 seconds here. That there is going to be that meeting coming up on February 26th from 6 to 7 p.m. with New York DOT. And it's about it's going to be at the Horseheads Village Hall, to discuss the status of the Route 14 Miracle Mile paving project. So if you have any questions regarding that, again, that is on February the 26th from 6 p.m. till 7 p.m. Well, thank you to everybody who joined us this morning. We covered a lot. The big breaking story, for whatever it's worth. Oh, there's a piece that I would recommend, by the way, if you have a chance, at the Empire Report. It's quite lengthy, but it's about the redistricting update here in New York. It's been quite some would call it chaos, and it's coming down to the wire, and that's Representative Nicole Maltakis has taken it to court. There are no real updates on that, but the piece goes kind of through the history of it, and you can find that at Empire Report this morning. I would highly recommend it, and as the updates come in, we will let you know what we hear. Also, for whatever it's worth, the breaking story that came out right before we went on the air, ex-Prince Andrew was arrested by the UK police on his 66th birthday in relation to what was in the Epstein files. That does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Have a great day, and we'll be back tomorrow morning, bright and early, starting at 6, only on WYDC TV Big Fox. I look forward to it already. Have a great day, everyone.
Suburban Propane is here for your residential and industrial propane needs. Serving the surrounding area for over 95 years, we take pride in our reliable delivery service with 24/7, 365 emergency service answered by company representatives. Call today to start your Suburban Propane service.
With the games in full swing, stop in Hesselson's today and see why Ona Sauna will bring calmness and stress relief naturally. Infrared, traditional rock saunas, and hybrid saunas. Hesselson's has them all on display in their expanded and remodeled showroom. Better circulation, detox the skin through sweating. Feeling refreshed and rejuvenated? Now is the time to make every day better with your own sauna, starting at just $39.99. And remember, after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.